The Brunel Centre for Contemporary Writing is a unit that's been in place for probably a decade now at Brunel University, and it's the kind of central hub that we've organised a lot of our innovative work, which looks at both academic studies of contemporary literature, but also at actual practitioners of contemporary literature. We're not only unique in terms of the fact that we have a huge number of specialists working on contemporary literature, but we have also some of the leading writers in the UK as well. So that was the idea behind the centre, is to bring those two different groups together.
We have a fantastic team of writers who are academics here. All of the academics are practicing writers who publish books and produce scripts, as well as some of us being very active in the literary world. And I think it's very important that if you're going to study creative writing, you need to be taught by people who are actually practicing themselves, and we all are.
We have poets, prose writers, script writers, dramatists, and those with expertise in life writing as well. And in terms of our interests and backgrounds, I think we must be up there with the most diverse background in terms of where our writers come from and the themes they speak to. I think taken together, our work is doing a wonderful job to diversify contemporary UK literature.
We feel that we have some of the writers, most important writers in the national conversation around issues of diversity, ethnicity, inclusivity, Windrush, colonialism and so on. And we also have a very large number of academics working in that area as well.
The research interests of the department are really varied, but I think what brings us all together is that we are interested in making an intervention into society, that we believe in social change, that we believe in giving representation to underrepresented voices, and that we believe that a really healthy literature society is one where it is pluralistic, where everybody has a chance to where everyone has a chance to tell their stories and to reach as wide an audience as possible. And I think that is one of the very special things about creative writing here at Brunel.
So the research philosophy behind the work that we do at Brunel has been primarily to try and bring together the practical work that novelists and poets are doing. For example, I'll give the example of the investigation of the word otherness in Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. So Girl, Woman, Other wins the Booker Prize and therefore projects the idea of otherness into, if you like, the national and international stage. In the background, we as academics have probably been working on the idea of otherness in literature for 20 or 30 years. When we first started to work on the idea of otherness in literature, it wasn't even an idea that people investigated. And so we have this unique combination of a sort of really long investment in investigating a very important philosophical and conceptual and cultural concept. What is otherness? What does it mean to be the other? And then the ability to sort of tie that into a novelist who decides to write a novel that investigates that very concept. And it's that ability to link those two areas together. And then I guess the final part of it is also the way that Bernie and Benjamin Zephaniah and so on have also focused their work not just at a public who buys books, but also about transforming British culture for people who don't buy and read books, or for people in the workplace, or for future writers coming out of the Black British experience, for example.
But it was wonderful with Girl, Woman, Other that it was an experimental book about Black British women that has had such a wide reach, over 1 million copies sold in the English language. And that means that a lot of people in this country who are not from the communities I'm writing about have read the book and are reading a book that is an experimental text. And I think that is incredibly rewarding, because if before the Booker, if you'd have said to these people, this is a book, it's about Black British women and it's experimental and it's called a fusion fiction, they might not have wanted to pick it up. But because it won the Booker, they picked it up and have found actually that it's something that they can read and enjoy.
So a key point of our ref submission coming out of the Brunel Centre of Contemporary Writing was a concept that was called just transforming the literary landscape. And the idea behind that was to look at the way that the literature and the academic work that we produce is not just influencing and having impact on other academics, or necessarily just on people who read literature, but can it actually make a tangible impact on industries relevant to these topics. So for example, when you're looking at Bernardine's work, Bernardine used or leveraged her success, if you like, to really make a significant impact on the industry in terms of agencies and trying to make sure that literary agents were much more diverse. It's a very undiverse or non-diverse segment of white middle-class people, effectively. So she's been able to get agents to actually sign documents and make agreements that they will hire in a more diverse and inclusive way. And that's also translated into publishing as well. And so it's this attempt to take these ideas and actually embed them in some kind of tangible institutional change.
And it's not just about race. I'm talking about sexuality, I'm talking about gender, class, all of those communities or demographics who were more or less traditionally excluded from getting published, but also from the canon. And so it's really important that, you know, writers and academics working in the 21st century in the academy, that we expand the meaning of literature, global literature, British literature, literature in English. And that's what we mean by, you know, representation and underrepresentation. It's about redressing the balance that has been out of sync for a very long time.
Is this ability to transform institutions, so not just be part of the institution, the first BAME chair or whatever, but also to be able to change those institutions in a positive and tangible way, so you can say, yes, that's had impact. And that's a commonality, particularly across the writers in the department. So for example, Benjamin's work has a direct impact on institutions like prisons. Hannah Lowe's work has impact on institutions like the National Trust. So it's a clear strategy that we had, that at the end of all this, can you change something institutionally so that it's not just us talking about it, but actually making the situation better in a way that you can sort of demonstrate and prove.
The contemporary writing scene in Britain has made really big steps in the last 10, 15, 20 years in terms of its inclusivity and different voices from different communities being heard. It's still got a long way to go. I think in terms of what's being taught and what reaches the bookshelves, the bookshops, but there are definitely very good signs of things changing in a positive way.
We view this idea of transforming the literary landscape and the emphasis on this combination, if you like, of theoretical analysis of contemporary culture and studies, if you like, practical responses to that in the form of literary output and also institutional change on the back of that as the basis of all our research going forward. So that from now on, that will be the department that we are. And whether that's in the name of the Brunel Centre for Contemporary Writing or other units going forward in the future, Brunel has to be known as one of the conceptual centres for the idea of things like diversity within the UK landscape. It has to be one of the central areas that hires some of the most important writers in that area in the world, possibly, and also a centre where we're not just content to put those two things together, but we want to make some tangible change within the institutions and the social structures of 21st century Britain.